we can make the repairs. This morning, while they were preparing the pipe, they dug out the pit and they were getting ready to do their work. They tested the pressure that's coming through the pipe at this point, and it is 180 pounds per square inch. For the type of work that they're doing, and this is a concrete pipe, but it's got sort of a metal, almost like a can inside of it, and that is wrapped with wires, which is what holds it together. The concrete protects the pipe, but it's the metal can wrapped with the wires that hold it together. But they need to cut through those to drop these gates in, basically. They can do that safely if the pressure is between 100 and 120 pounds per square inch. When it gets up to the 180 mark, it is a very realistic possibility that when they cut into that, the entire pipe would explode, and we would end up with a 24-inch hole in the pipe instead of solving the problem. So we need to bring the pressure down. But as you know, we've had trouble with the gates to try to slow the water coming into it. So we've been working on a solution to that. Initially, early this morning, we thought we might have to repeat what we did Wednesday and turn the water off completely coming into the system in Waterbury. But through a lot of hard work from our water folks, and I commend them because a lot of what they're learning here are not on the maps and not on the papers. This is a 130-year-old system, and a lot of the work that's been done over the years has not been properly documented, so they're not always aware of what's there. One of the things that they did find is that up in Bunker Hill, there was a bypass that they did not know about. They believe that they can turn that bypass off. So they are going to still turn the water off where it comes in at Carvel. That's where the line splits between Watertown and Waterbury. Watertown should still continue to be supplied with water under this scenario. The water will stop flowing into Waterbury. If these bypass gates work up in Bunker Hill, the problem we were having earlier in the week with all that water draining back down into the system will be stopped. There's also a gate that we're going to try to close up on Long Hill Road. It's called Benefit. If we can close that, that'll stop the water from the east end from flowing back down. And relatively quickly, we should be able to get the pressure down and be able to start working on this. Once we start the work, it should take about 6 hours. If everything works right, we should be back in business in about 6 hours. They're going to run a bypass from while they're working on the valve itself. But once the temporary valves are dropped in, the drop-in valves are put in, they can actually recharge the system, and they will have a bypass that will get around the part they're blocking off so that the city will continue to have water. But there will be about 6 hours where it will be shut down. At this point, the parts that were ordered in the week are now on their way here, and we're monitoring where they're coming along, but they don't expect them to arrive here until about noon on Sunday. And once they're here, it's going to take a number of hours to prep all of this to get ready to drop those things in. There's a whole process that has to be done, and Chip Bouch from Farley, the company that's doing it, is here to answer any technical questions. But so we don't believe that we're going to be in a position to try to drop those in until early Monday morning, at which point we would have to turn the water off for about 6 hours to get this done. So right now we're looking at early Monday. That is dependent on the parts getting here on Sunday. They're being trucked up from Florida. So depending on traffic and other things, that could be a moving target, but we're hopeful that they'll be here on Sunday. That means that it's very likely that Monday we will have to cancel school again because a number of schools, and we don't know how many, there were 6 or 7 last week that lost water when we shut down. We expect there to be a similar number again if this happens. So we're closing school on Monday. We're not going to announce we're closing it today yet, because if the parts don't show up on Sunday, all of this gets pushed off another day. But if they do show up Sunday, we'll be closing on Monday. The hospitals have been working with us. They've been notified. They have tankers prepared to stand by. Hopefully, just like Wednesday, neither one of them will lose pressure, but if they do, we'll have tankers standing by. They've been working with our fire department, our water department to prepare for that. And the boil notice is still in effect. So if your pressure had dropped, you should continue boiling water until we're done with this process, and then we will see where we are. And if you lose pressure during this process, you should also start boiling your water as well if you hadn't lost pressure before. That's kind of where we are at this point. We're hoping that this is going to work, and we'll see where it goes. But it's a very technical process. Once it starts, it should work out really well, but it's a matter of getting us everything ready to go. So I think I covered everything. Is there anything I missed? So, no. All right, does anyone have any questions?
The samples that they were testing, did that come back yet?
We haven't gotten to that point because we're not sure, we're going to continue on with this at this point. So we'll do the testing once we're done with this whole process.
And you're expecting to shut off water Monday morning for 6 hours?
It's Monday morning, early Monday morning. We expect to be able to be ready to drop these in. Once we do, in order to do that, we'll turn the water off, and it's going to take about 6 hours before we can turn it back on, correct? So it'll be most of the morning, if everything goes well, most of the morning on Monday.
So the repairs aren't going to start until Monday?
The repairs won't start until Monday morning. I'm sorry, they'll start Sunday once the materials get on site, but there's a process in which they have to prep this and get things ready. It's Chip, I don't know if you want to come up and sort of explain the technical process, but it's going to take a number of hours before they're ready to drop these in and turn the water off. So we will start Sunday as soon as we get them, but we won't be prepared to turn the water off till early Monday morning. Do you want to just explain what you're going to do with all these pieces?
So it's a process we have to put the actual stopper unit on itself. It's a process that we have to put on. It's a longer process because of the pipe that it is, and because of that pipe having to lower the pressure to keep from catastrophic failure is the best way to put it. We wrap a fitting around the pipe. We have to expose the pipe. During the point while the pipe's exposed, in order to keep from blowing up, we have to lessen the pressure. As soon as the fitting itself is on, the system can be returned to pressure, and we will finish the process, and then the actual repair will start. The first part of the repair is actually just getting the shutdown basically accomplished.
Sir, would you mind just saying and spelling your first last name?
Christopher Bosch, B-A-U-C-H.
Thank you very much. And who are you with?
I'm with Jack Fairley Company, Division of Corps in Maine.
And who will not have water? The houses nearby?
So if the valves that we're looking at hold, the gates hold, we shouldn't see too much of the city without water. If they fail, the ones in Bunker Hill we expect will work. The Benefit one on the east side of town, we're not sure about. It's an old valve, and we don't want to try to test it beforehand. We'll check to see if it moves a little bit, but we don't want to try to close it and open it because we're afraid the more often we do that, the more likely it is to fail when we need it, if it's not failing now. If that happens, a good portion of the east end, like last week, will lose water, and it'll begin again in the higher elevations and work its way down. But it's possible, if all of this goes well and everything works the way we're hoping it will at this point, that we shouldn't lose water in most of the city, right? Most of the city should maintain water, so. But we're just not sure, which is why we're going to close schools, just to be on the safe side.
Is there any preemptive work on other pipes in the city that may be as old?
So that part of what's causing this headache for us right now is there is another main. This is the 30-inch main. We also have a 46-inch main that runs along Huntingdon Avenue. It's just as old, and it has given us a lot of trouble in the past with breaks, especially in the dead of winter when the ground freezes and you get the frost. We are in the process of relining that pipe, which is a little bit easier and less expensive than replacing all of it, but it's just as beneficial to extending the life of that pipe. So we're in the process of doing that to solve the problems on Huntingdon Avenue. Unfortunately, that requires us to shut that line down. It won't be finished with the work until the end of October, so we can't recharge it at this point. We have to wait till October. Once that's done, that pipe should be in better shape, and then we can start doing some work on the 30-inch main, including fixing some of these gates that we know now aren't working. So this is a 130-year-old system that for the most part hasn't really been touched or maintained over the years because it's underground and people don't see it. But we are starting to do work on a lot of this. There's a lot. If you drive through the city, you'll see there's a lot of road work being done, a lot of digging being done. A lot of that is to replace utilities and put in newer pipes in the distribution line. So we are working on it, but unfortunately, this happened before we finished the Huntingdon Avenue line. Historically, it hasn't been such a problem because we've been able to go back and forth between one or the other when we've had a problem. So this is the first time we're finding, we're really facing this issue. Yes?
So right now, where are the spots in the city that have low pressure?
Nobody has low pressure right now. The pressure has all been brought back up for the most part. We've been, we started refilling it or recharging it yesterday. And so when we turn, and right now it's running, the water's leaking, but it is running. Once we get to hopefully Monday morning and we're ready to put the valves in, we'll have to turn the water back off again. Then we'll have a bypass. Once the bypass is in, the valves are in, about 6 hours later, we'll turn it back on and people should have it, so.
And how will you do the bypass?
It's going to be a 18-inch pipe that will run from one of the shut-off valves basically to the other. It'll run above ground for I think it's about 200 feet, 250 feet from one side to the other, and that will continue running until we get this repaired, and then we can open it up and turn it back on. And they tell me the 18 inches will be sufficient to provide, because I asked the question if it's 30 inches and we go to 18, but they said it'll be fine to provide water.
Mayor, I know this is a hard thing to think about right now, with this problem still very much in front of you. I had a brief conversation with Brad Mollet this afternoon. He obviously, just took over this position permanently a month ago. He told me in his 25 years in this industry, he had never had to issue a boil water order. I know he's boiling over this. He really wants to attack this problem. He was mentioning, capital investment projects, something he wants to replace all of the critical valves in the city. I imagine that's a big undertaking. How do you view the long-term prevention of something like this happening again?
We have to undertake a capital program to start repairing some of this. We've started that, and we're working on it, as I said, on Huntingdon Avenue. Once we're done, once this is resolved and the Huntingdon Avenue line reopens, we're going to come back and look at the valves here that we know have failed and work to replace all of those. But it's not an inexpensive proposition. So you've got two things that keep it from happening all at once. One is just the cost. We couldn't afford to do all of the repairs at one time. But secondly, you can't repair the entire system at once because you'd have to shut the entire system down, and we can see what a nightmare that is right now. So we have to do this incrementally, but we are aware of it, and we are beginning to build up. We do have a program for replacing lines and the rest of it right now, so we are working on that. But I feel his frustration. This is not it's not, it's inconvenient for everybody at this point, and I know people are on edge over it, and I know, the schools were closed already once over this. Unfortunately, we're probably going to need to close another day, so, but we are going to get to work on it. But this is just, we faced a lot of that in the city over the last 25 years, just hugely neglected infrastructure that we're finally catching up on making progress on, and the water pipes are just a part of that.
Is the Bureau of Water or Department of Public Works working to credit customers for the loss of having water access for those days?
Well, at this point, I mean, obviously, you pay for the water that you use, so there will be no fees. If you can't access water, there's no, there'd be no charge for it. But beyond that, at this point, we're not doing anything or planning to do anything. So.
Do you expect to announce Sunday if schools are closed on Monday?
Yes. The only reason we're not announcing it right now is because I'm afraid if something happens as the truck is making its way up here, it doesn't get here till Sunday night or Monday morning. I don't want to close schools Monday, then we have to close them Tuesday. So we should know by sometime noon or early Sunday afternoon whether the materials are here, and once they're here, we should know that we're going to close Monday, and we'll be able to make the announcement Sunday afternoon sometime. By dinner time on Sunday, I think for sure.
But schools will definitely have to close while the repairs are being done.
Yes, we know because if we could start tonight and do it over the weekend, we wouldn't have to close the schools. But the other issue is that right now, as I said, the water. We thought about actually putting this off till next weekend because that would have been made it easier for the schools. The problems we face is the water continues to run, and as it continues to run, it is going to undermine the road. And there is a smaller line that runs parallel to this one along that same road. If the road washes out, that pipe will most likely be damaged as well. In addition to that, even if the road doesn't wash out, there is still that 2-inch valve in which a lot of 180 pounds per square foot of pressure is shooting through right now. That's going to deteriorate, and so over time that valve will become in worse shape. So we have to get this done sooner rather than later, which is why we're not putting it off.
No issue with fire protection through the city or anything?
No, we are monitoring it, and the fire department is aware of it, and that's a good question. We will be, once again, talking to our neighbors for mutual aid to have tankers stand by. Certain parts of the city last week, the pressure did drop low enough that, we would have needed the tanker. So we do continue to monitor that. We're hopeful, again, if these two gates hold that we're looking at Bunker Hill and Benefit, that we shouldn't lose too much pressure throughout the city during the 6-hour period. But we will be prepared for that. The same way the hospitals are preparing by getting tankers ready to stand by just in case they lose pressure. Neither hospital on Wednesday had a problem with this, so We don't expect it again, but we are preparing for it. This is one of those situations where we're hoping for the best, but we're preparing for the worst as we go through it.
Any rough estimates as cost, you got now?
I know, I think the materials that we're bringing in to do this fix are at least $100,000. There's overtime that's going to come into this and all the rest, but I don't, at this point, we're more interested, working to see what we can do to solve it than what it's going to cost us. The other issue I do want to point out is and the health department will be reaching out as well. So for any restaurants or bodegas or shops that use water, in any area that's affected by the drop in pressure, they do have special guidelines that are in place, and they need to be tested as well. So we need to keep an eye on that. I just want to make restaurant and shop owners aware of that as well. I know this last week the health department has been reaching out to folks, but we don't know everyone who's going to lose water. It depends on what happens. So you just need to be aware of it as well. And if you have any questions, reach out to the health department as to how to handle that.
Any idea of when the test results for the samples to come back?
We won't do those again. We won't do those, until we're ready to turn the water back on. We'll do them, hopefully Monday, and then it takes 24 hours to get the results back. So it'll be early next week before we'll know for sure.
So you're going to get new samples?
Yeah, we'll do samples once it's done, because this is, everything's in flux right now, so.
Oh, so you held off on getting the samples because you found out about this issue, and so the tests haven't been
Right,
done.
because we thought, we were hopeful today that we would be ready, to start going today, but the parts are delayed and the rest, so we thought we were going to be lowering water pressure, so. And we thought this morning, earlier this morning, we thought we were going to have to shut everything down until these guys just kept doing some research and were able to find these additional valves that they didn't know were there, so. Anything else? All right, thank you all. Hopefully the next time I'll be telling you how it all worked out, so.